Are you retarded?
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you millions of voices who suddenly cried out with glee when you found out the Acolyte was canceled, and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. It's been a year and a half since the show whose pitch made Kathleen Kennedy cry was given the axe by Kathleen Kennedy.
She's a miser!
Making 5s and 10s of the fans and thousands of content creators cry. Because, and this is a bit of a shocker, the Acolyte was actually too woke and cringe for Lucasfilm. Yet some people just can't let it go, including the Acolyte showrunner, former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Headland, who's come out of the woodwork to finally accept full responsibility for the show's failure. No, I'm just kidding. She blames YouTubers.
Here we go.
That's right. She blames YouTube commentary for shaping the conversation around the show that she made and leading to its cancellation. First off, to echo the sentiments of my fellow content creators, you're welcome. But in all seriousness, I wish we had that kind of power, because Kurtzman Trek would no longer exist, Doctor Who might still be alive, and the Rings of Power wouldn't have happened. The fact of the matter is, since the Acolyte was announced back in 2020 and former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Headland, was attached, it was one of the most predictable failures in the history of predictable failures. And it became the symbol of Disney's Star Wars failures for a myriad of reasons, which we will get to. But first, let's hear what Leslie Headland has to say. Leslie Headland labels YouTube Star Wars commentators fascist and racist while discussing why the Acolyte was canceled. Now, she opens up with things like, I did start to feel that when my Star Wars show came out in 2024, I remember thinking, oh gosh, I wish it wasn't coming out in an election year. I think that's contributed to the move away from DEI hires. That's a neat rationalization, but in truth, it had nothing to do with it being an election year and had everything to do with shows like yours being the reason people are moving away from DEI hires. Because nobody's watching them, ergo, they're not making any money. Leslie also says that the Acolyte was always a major risk. Sure, in the sense that you decided to base a show in the failed High Republic storyline, which took the place of the highly popular expanded universe whose cancellation led to a lot of pissed off Star Wars fans. That's risky, but as far as taking a diverse female character and shoehorning her into a prequel of a beloved intellectual property to make her far more significant than the legacy characters, well, that's just a trope.
I've had an upgrade.
She also made excuses that she couldn't use things like politics, the Empire, or stormtroopers, but she did have Jedi. To her credit, Leslie did say that any gripes creatively with the show are completely valid. Well, then I guess we're done here, because the vast majority of gripes, including mine, about the show were what happened within the show. That's people's reaction. It's usually their reaction to their own reaction.
What the are you talking about?
Then Leslie undermines that statement with what comes next. When asked by The Wrap, what was the experience for you to see the show not only get attacked, but weaponized by certain parts of the media? Oh, and as far as certain parts of the media weaponizing things, believe me, we'll get to that too. But first, let's hear from Ms. Headland. While claiming she was not online during the Acolyte Discourse, she did reiterate once again that she was a Star Wars fan, indeed a fan of all the Star Wars.
So when people are like, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? I'm like, there is no Star Wars movie. There is only Star Wars.
Take this portrait of a single cloud.
I am a Star Wars fan, which means I've always been since the launch of the YouTube part of the Star Wars recap, criticism, lionization fandom community. These guys I've known for years and years, so when I got the information from others about what the weather report was, there was this real concern from friends of mine or co-workers of mine that saddened me. Well, what's happened to Star Wars has saddened me and so many others. I was also like, I know who these guys are. You don't have to tell me who's talking about it or how bad it is online. I know exactly who they are. I supported them on Patreon.
It's a total fabrication.
And this is the part about YouTubers that's making the rounds. There are some of them that I respect. There are some of them that I think are absolute snake oil salesmen, just opportunists, and you would know a thing or two about that, wouldn't you, Leslie? Then, of course, there are the fascists and the racists. Yep, that large contingent of fascist and racist Star Wars fans. I remember as a kid all the ones who were rooting for the Empire and hated Lando Calrissian. And then that next generation that hated Mace Windu. But you know, the only certifiable racist thing done to Star Wars was from Disney when they shrunk Finn on the poster for China. Something I was completely against, but now I'm for it, considering Finn actor Jonathan Boyega said this about the fandom.
They're pandering. Let me tell you, Star Wars always had the vibe of being in the most widest elite space. But the franchise is so wide that it's like a black person existing in that was something. And you can always tell it's something when some Star Wars fans try to say, well, we had Lando Calrissian and it had Samuel L. Jackson. It's like telling me how many cookie chips are on the cookie dough. I'm like, bro, they just scattered that in there, bro. They're okay with us playing the best friend. But once we touch their heroes, once we lead, once we trailblaze, it's like, oh my God, it's just a bit too much.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these snakes.
Anyway, so Leslie continues. So I think if you're in part of the fandom, you understand the genre and the tone of particular channels and creators. Interesting, because I could say the same about certain activist creators who hitch their wagon to beloved intellectual properties in Hollywood. The content that is being put out by streamers or the studios, I'm glad you're calling it content because that's exactly what it is being snatched up by other creators. And so commentaries, synopsis, live videos, all of the ways these creators make money through viewer-based ad revenues and their Patreons. And there's a lot of money to be made. The typical deflection from calling us fascist and racist to grifters. To that, well, you caught me. Every weekend, I secretly break out my 4K Steelbox Acolyte and watch it. And I'm sure Leslie, just like the rest of us, waited in lines at midnight to watch The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and all the prequels. Sat by the radio every Sunday night to listen to the Star Wars radio show on NPR, waited by the mailbox for that next copy of Bantha Tracks, because I'm sure Leslie was a member of the Star Wars fan club, did those extra chores to get that sweet Hoth playset, read Splinter of the Mind's Eye 100 times over during that 3-year wait between Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, or listening to the Star Wars soundtrack so much your siblings wanted to murder you. And I'm sure every creator like Leslie hasn't used Star Wars as just an opportunity to put something else on their resume and use it as a platform for the message. Never happens. But then she goes on to say that the studios actually listen to YouTubers. But it revealed to me that there is a misunderstanding between the studios and that engagement. They think of it as fandom, and in a way it is, but studios almost use it as a focus group. For one, the reason for the high engagement from all these content creators is because it is fandom, and studios would be smart to listen to them as a focus group because you're getting real-time, authentic opinions for the most part, and that studio should be thanking whatever god they worship, probably Moloch, that people still care. But to push the narrative that studios are listening to content creators, or more importantly, the people in their comment sections and their chats, is preposterous. Because if they did, the Acolyte would have never been made and they would have saved hundreds of millions of dollars. But then Ms. Headland says something I completely agree with. It made me start to think that rather than these fans are toxic, you're getting there, or this thing is being mean to me, it made me think more that the content being made about Star Wars will ultimately be more culturally impactful than the actual Star Wars. And I think she's starting to get it, because the most interesting and engaging thing about Disney Star Wars is the conversation and discourse around it. It certainly isn't the stories. They range from boring to downright hateful to its own legacy and hateful to the fans. Lucasfilm and their willing and able comrades in the access media have created this space through gaslighting the fandom to deflect from their own failures. Case in point, Moses Ingram with Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was warned she was going to get some clapback, and then magically they found 3 messages, which wherever they're from, she shouldn't have gotten, but they decided to weave an entire narrative about it.
They're trying to help you prepare for this backlash, and there are people out there who say some really awful things.
You know, they've been really great about connecting me with the people who've been through this.
We stand with Moses. We love Moses. And if you're sending her bullying messages, you're no Star Wars fan in my mind.
The same thing happened with The Acolyte, with Leslie Headland taking a preemptive soft shot at the fandom 4 days before the damn thing came out. And that's because in both cases, Disney Lucasfilm knew they had a turd on their hands and they needed to shift the narrative and blame the customer, because that always works. That's Disney, Lucasfilm, and hell, Hollywood marketing 101. Create a victim, throw in some emotional blackmail, create the bad fan narrative, and then you have a bunch of people fighting for a bad show. And let's not forget, Leslie Headland personally invited some YouTubers over to visit at Lucasfilm, and some of the YouTubers pictured here were part of a campaign to get channels like yours truly, The Critical Drinker, Geeks and Gamers, and Ryan Kinnell's RK Outpost deplatformed for criticizing a TV show. To YouTube's credit, they told him to pound sand, but you know what the solution is to shutting down your critics and winning over new fans? Making a good show. I don't hate to break this to you, but The Acolyte earned its 19% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, its 3.2 audience score on Metacritic, and its rather high 4.3 audience score on IMDb. And it earned its very unusually public cancellation by Disney. And why was it canceled? Because it cost too much money, not enough people watched it, and it was really bad. And you know whose responsibility that isn't? YouTubers and the fans. Last time I checked, YouTubers didn't hire the former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein to head a Star Wars show and give her $230 million to write fan fiction. Content creators didn't greenlight a Star Wars show that was pitched as Frozen meets Kill Bill. We didn't come up with the scripts that were the writing equivalent to taking George Lucas's lore to Harvey's office, which included things like singing communist lesbian space witches, a fire in space, and this scene.
As he begins to untie a belted knot from around his waist, she straightens up for a better look. He begins to undress, revealing a prominent scar on his well-toned back. Dropping his billowy-legged hakama pants, he steps forward with the sunlight accentuating his taut muscles.
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars.
YouTubers didn't hire a lead actor who could barely speak English or a lead actress to play two roles with one facial expression. I don't think The Critical Drinker told Leslie Headland's wife to go attack fans. It wasn't our decision to allow the adult pretenders to open their pie holes and say the dumbest things possible.
The best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil. It depends on what side you're standing on, truly. You know what I mean?
Because I feel like Star Wars is very like patriarchal, so it was kind of cool to have like this sort of woman-centered figure.
Oh, shut up, will you?
And I don't seem to recall any of us giving Amandla Stenberg the idea once the criticism started dying down to fire it all up again by releasing a diss track against Star Wars fans. No, I'm not sorry to tell you that it was everybody involved in making this show, from Bob Iger to Kathleen Kennedy to Leslie Headland to Dave Filoni to the catering department, that made The Acolyte the cultural phenomenon it was in all the wrong ways, which ultimately became the culmination of all of Disney Star Wars failures, because if YouTubers had anything to do with it, season 2 would be in production right now, and I think I can speak for all of my fellow content creators sincerely. Renew The Acolyte. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, Lucasfilm, I thank you for watching this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.